But moving on, this is not just about diplomatic speed dating. There are a number of significant corporate entities represented here, and again this will be a showcase for Russian industry, and I'm very pleased to have with me Dmitry Konov. He joins us from Sibir, the huge petrochemical company here in Russia. Good to see you once again, Dmitry. I just wanted to start, if I can, by asking you about the environment that we have between Russia and the United States. The Americans are now talking again about a bill from hell that'll put further sanctions on Russia. How easy or otherwise is it making policy for your company and important capex decisions while we have this negative atmosphere?
Well, it's never, it's never good to have something negative. We have a lot of unpredictability. We do believe here that U.S.-Russia relationship are not, in fact, a relationship between the two countries, but rather some discussions inside American politics. And when you cannot predict or when you cannot judge what is coming ahead and what is the reasoning behind that, it's pretty difficult to act. On the other hand, we do make our own investment decisions. We are pretty happy with the environment in the industry we are working in the global petrochemicals. We see a reasonably healthy Russian market, so we can make our decision and we can move ahead on our expansion plans.
Yours is a long cycle business. You invest a lot of money in plant and machinery before you ultimately get your payback. One of the big decisions you're taking is to build a huge petrochemical plant on the Russian-Chinese border. Is that a reflection of the fact you feel more business is going to come from the east rather than from the west going forward?
Well, it's indirectly so. Our plant, our expansion project is pretty much related to Gazprom expansion program. Gazprom signed a deal to supply gas to China about several years ago, and they are supposed to start these supplies of gas by 2020. And they built a plant to extract everything from the gas processing plant on the Russian territory, including some hydrocarbons which can be used as petrochemical feedstock. And we signed a contract with Gazprom earlier this year with the terms of supply of ethane, which is a petrochemical feedstock, to potentially plant of Sibir. Our final investment decision date is late next year, and I think it will be a very interesting project, specifically taking into account that the largest demand growth for our products comes from China.
So you're happy to continue with these major investments even as we see emerging markets weakened at this point by fears around a trade war between the United States and China and other countries in Asia?
Well, I would say we are happy to proceed with our investment on one hand. On the other, we would be happier if these tensions would be smaller and it would be a more stable environment. But still, you talked about our cycles and cycles in our industry. We do see some volatility which is more politically driven, but fundamentally we believe that our industry and the supply-demand picture is positive for us and for our investment.
The domestic situation here in Russia, again, has been affected by the narrative from the United States. The ruble back through 70, Russian equities down 20%, the ruble off over 10% here. So what President Trump is doing does seem to be hurting the economy domestically.
Volatility is never good. I mean, we have not only what Mr. Trump is doing, I think, because one of the factors which affected the recent currency fluctuation was events in Turkey, events in Argentina and other emerging markets, so it's not anything directly linked to Mr. Trump. So I would not blame Mr. Trump for everything, right, in this respect. It's a volatility in the global markets, but I said fundamentally, I mean, Russian economy has been steadily developing. Demand for our products, the synthetic material petrochemicals, which substitute some other materials in all the uses and applications, has been good. we still see growth factors above global GDP, which allows us to move forward. As I said, on the shorter term, it's never good to have volatility, but in many cases, it's just inevitable.
I want to use this opportunity to clear the air about the IPO. I read lots of rumours, but I don't see any firm timetable for your company to go to market. Can you be very clear with us, where is the IPO at this point? Are you talking to the banks? Will it be in New York or London or Russia? What detail can you give us?
We've been discussing for some months whether we can make any capital markets transactions. Our shareholders, since the very first time when they acquired Sibur from the financial investors, which was back in 2010, they've been saying that Sibur should be a public company. We've seen a number of expansions and since then, and we are very close to mechanical completion of our largest expansion project called Zapsit Neftihim, which we target to be second quarter next year, and it may be a good moment to discuss. And as I said, there is not a set timetable for any transaction. We're talking to investors, we're talking to the banks, we're talking to get the feeling whether it could be a right moment to move on or it cannot be. And our shareholders, I believe, are pretty happy with the performance of the company. So for them, it's really a decision. If they see an attractive market, they would go. And attractive market is not only the valuations of Russian equities, but also the global petrochemical cycle. And these two factors, our shareholders, they do take into account.
And briefly, Wall Street or London?
For us, it's Moscow. At the first stage, it's Moscow, and then we'll see what we do with international exchanges.
And 3 to 5 billion is a valuation number I've heard. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, it's we don't set any specific target on the on the stake and on the amount of money. The potential deal size would depend on the valuation of the company and the stake the shareholders would decide to sell. But as I said, it's a little bit too early to discuss that. But we do believe the company is a sizable company. The valuations could be potentially high. And if we think about any transaction, we'll try to be included in the index, which implies that we'll have to float maybe about 15%, which is a sizable stake.
Dmitry, very nice to see you. Thanks so much for giving us your time. Dmitry Konov with us, the CEO of Sibur.